that was my lesson 4 from Watercolor Secrets. So there's, well, it's from the mountain part of Watercolor Secrets. There's Gabe, and I dressed him all up like a geisha. And I didn't mean to. It was an accident. But I messed up. This is supposed to be Misty Mountains, and it doesn't look at all right. But I was supposed to use a 140-pound balking board, not paper, and I used paper. So that might account for why it didn't work out. This one worked out pretty well. I made a lot of mistakes, but I really like it. This one was the lesson 5 from the mountains one, and I love this blazing with the blue after. It made it, the reflections, it made it look really good. I like that one a lot. And I'll be talking about Resistance and Dark Winds season 2, I think that was. And James is having some hot chocolate, which is not actually hot chocolate. And I made lasagna bites. I don't know if they'll be great for James, but I think he'll love them. We'll see. And there's some, today we were given butternut squash and hash browns, so that's a treat from the food truck. It hasn't been, the food truck hasn't been very, as much vegetables and stuff as I had hoped lately, but then today,
it's been a while since harvest.
Yeah, today we managed to get a lot of good stuff, so I'm thrilled. So yeah, the lasagna bites, I just use those little mini tortillas that they sometimes give out at the food truck, and that was the last of our mini tortillas that we had. And I used a slice of Swiss cheese from a sandwich that they usually give out, these sandwiches. They didn't today, but and then I got cottage cheese on sale at, just make sure it's not too hot. Is it too hot?
It's just right.
I got cottage cheese on sale for 99 cents from Shoppers today, and I put that in, and some pasta sauce that they often give out, but they didn't today at the food truck, and onions and spinach. I think that's it. But anyway, I think it'll be great. So a little something different to do with the little tortilla bites. I just thought, oh well, I wonder if lasagna would be good in there, lasagna flavors, and so that's what I did. Resistance. Now I will be going through a bunch of World War II sort of things, and I don't want to. I've been avoiding going through them. Sometimes I lay awake at night and think, I wish I had something to watch, and I know that I have a whole bunch of World War II things to watch, but I just don't want to. But they seem to be on the shelves a lot lately, on the return shelf, so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll bring it home from the library and get through it. And it's a story about Marceau, and I hadn't known anything about him, but honestly, I always like seeing Jesse Eisenberg, and he doesn't have a lot of versatility as an actor. Really, maybe none, but I like seeing him all the same. And he was playing a mime in this one, and honestly, I'm sure well, I don't know, but one would hope that a world-famous Marceau would be a better mime than Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh my God, yeah, that's not good.
Was not doing a very good mime, but I didn't expect him to be able to do. But anyway, I guess it's a good enough story to do a movie about. I managed to stay awake, so, and I don't like watching World War II stuff.
We call it Resistance.
Well, I guess I didn't know about any of this, but there were a bunch of people who ended up staying in France, even when it was occupied, Jewish people. And they were just, like Marceau isn't actually wasn't his name. He changed changed it to that on. He changed his passport, and so he was changing passports so that Jewish people would pass as French people and be able to stay there. And they were trying to smuggle children out to save them. So they were trying to do something really good, and I guess they managed to, he and his buddies managed to smuggle out lots of kids. So
They had to smuggle them.
yeah.
The rest of the world wouldn't take Jews. The most important is so-called Palestine wouldn't take them because the English, who were kind of controlling Palestine at that point in time, were afraid of the Muslims, and the Muslims didn't want
So what do you think of lasagna tortilla
didn't want
things?
Jews in their own homeland. The Arabs and Muslims of so-called Palestine, really Israel, were complicit. 6 million lives dead. They wouldn't take them. Shameful.
Now, one thing, I was watching the show and they were saying that France was occupied, and they were kind of, I don't, as far as I remember learning about history, France was pretty complacent about, yeah, come on in.
To the Germans?
Yeah. So
Not initially.
so I don't know. Okay. Anyway.
They put up a fight. It wasn't a very... They were so stupid. They were, after World War I, they put up something called the Maginot Line. M-A-G-I-N-O-T, as I recall. And now, during World War I, the Germans, Germans and a lot of their supporters were saying, there's no, and commies too, there's no difference between the two sides. They're both imperialists, excuse me. How the Germans started World War I is they invaded, to get around the French defenses, they invaded through Belgium. That's a war crime. Belgium was neutral. The Germans were horrible brutes. Just for that. And so they were able to, they almost got into Paris. So the French said, never again. So they put up this big system of forts along the French-German border. None along the Belgian border.
Oh. Yeah.
And of course the Germans came through Belgium, they came through Holland too. This time they went through 2 neutral countries. Shame on them. But, and this time they were able to conquer the French and what was called the BEF, British Expeditionary Force, and very quickly. Hitler didn't want England to lose their colonies because English people are German people. He wanted German people to control the world. He wanted Britain to maintain its empire. He wanted to unite with it. And he overseas, and he wanted Germany to have a continental empire. He wanted them to control the world. So he didn't want their army to go down. So he let them, from what I can tell, escape at a place called Dunkirk. Now, he at least, I think maybe he was conflicted. So they kind of didn't wipe them out. They were, that's all that was left. They had to leave equipment and stuff like that, but at least they got the men out. The other thing is he might have been being fed bad intelligence by his intelligence community. It's hard to control the intelligence community. When idiots around after 9/11 were saying, hey, the Pakistani intelligence was supporting the Taliban and that sort of stuff. The Americans are a bunch of doofuses. Well, Musharraf, who was in control, kind of, sort of Pakistan at that time, was being Richarded around, if you think of a nickname for Richard, you'll know what I'm thinking of, by the Inter-Services Intelligence, or whatever it's called, the equivalent of the CIA for Pakistan. They were still supporting the Taliban. They weren't on the same page as Musharraf. These things happen. It's hard to, within an intelligence service, to control the intelligence service, because you'll oftentimes have things organized in cells. So the guy at the top might not have a complete idea of everyone who's supposed to be underneath him. That's what happened with JFK. It wasn't anything like what Oliver Stone would have you believe in the movie JFK. It wasn't the CIA. It was certain elements. It might not have gone up higher than E. Howard Hunt, who'd been, I think, at one point in time in control of the Mexican embassy or something like that, or the top CIA official at the Mexican embassy or something like that. He was low down the totem pole. E. Howard Hunt looks very complicit in the assassination. Eventually there was a guy called Canaris. I don't know if that means canary or something like that. It's a funny name. He's a German, head of German intelligence. And I think he was an admiral, actually, but head of German intelligence. And they say that he was feeding Hitler and his buddies the wrong information about D-Day. Now, D-Day was powerful, but it shouldn't have succeeded the way it did. If Hitler kept on thinking that the Brits would take the direct route. So, looking at from your point of view, the English had got the Americans earlier. Well, it's like it was 2 years earlier, before D-Day, to put up what for him was a fake invasion of Germany at a place called Dunkirk. He knew it wouldn't succeed. That's why he sacrificed a lot of Canadians. Thank you goes to Winston Churchill. I know you're burning down in hell somewhere for all of your crimes and misdemeanors, if there is such a thing. So he made sure not to sacrifice any British troops, or not many. Anyway, it did serve a purpose 2 years later, because what happened was they didn't go to Dunkirk, which is close to the shortest route between England and France. They did a kind of end around, to use a football term, American football term, and they came through Normandy on D-Day. And I think Canaris was feeding him information. This is just a fake move by the Allies, the Americans, British, and Canadians, through Normandy. They're holding back, and they're going to come through places like Dunkirk or whatever, maybe even into Belgium. I think Dunkirk, even though it's a Dutch kind of name, Kirk is Germanic, like for church. In German it's Kirche, but it's in French it's Église, Eglise. So they could have come through Belgium too, but it should suggest to you, when you see a Germanic kind of name, Dutch name, inside of France, that France's boundaries are way too overextended. They have a little empire in Europe. Nice, its real name is Nizza. That's an Italian name. The French shouldn't control that. They shouldn't control Alsace-Lorraine. The real names is Elsass-Lothringen, or Alsace-Lorraine, and it's German. So they control Dutch territory, they control German territory, they control Italian territory, they control Basque territory. What do they call Basque? Gascony. They really mispronounce it. And there are a certain number of people who came over from what we now call England, or Britain, and they're called Bretons. Brittany, we call it in English. And they came over later, but really Gauls were Gaelic people. You notice the similarity, Gauls, Gaelic people, and that's related to Celtic, Gaelic, on and on it goes. The French are really colonizers. They're Latin colonizers. They're Roman descendants of Romans. And they don't really have a right to France, but they control a lot of different areas. So Canaris was... What was that?
Not all of it. They have right to some of France.
Do
Surely. Don't they?
The Romans came from Italy. They even were imperialists inside of Italy. They, like the story goes, I don't know how accurate it was. They had some neighbors called Sabines. Basically, they were a city-state. They didn't have enough women, so they invited everyone to a party. They must have killed the men, and it's called the rape of the Sabines. Okay? So they were in a place called Latium. See, that's where Latin comes from. But they conquered the south. The Celtic people were actually in the northern part of Italy. It's called Cisalpine Gaul, not trans. Trans means across the Alps. Cis means this side of the Alps. So the Po Valley, from what I can tell, was controlled, at least at one point in time, by Gaelic people, by Celtic kind of people. So they don't have any right to, really, aside from the right of miscegenation and mixing and stuff like that, to any part of France. So if they go around strutting around, we're the descendants of the Romans. Yeah, get back to Rome.
Well, one thing, they talked about briefly, it was just mentioned in this movie, they talked about, one woman was saying, so many French people dislike you because of this.
Dislike?
Well, Jewish people, she was saying.
Because of what?
Whatever, I don't know. It didn't matter. But they were on the same side for this, so he put up with it, right? And he said, well, it's really that they blame Jewish people for killing Christ. And
they shouldn't blame
I've heard
Jewish
that
people.
because Jesus was a Jew. So it's kind of funny, right?
Well, they killed a leader. You distinguish between ethnicity and religion, right?
Yeah.
They killed a leader of a founder, really, of a religion.
Yeah.
And Judaism has changed. They profited from separation of church and state. They weren't enthused about it. Mm-hmm. But at the time of Jesus, they were a punishing, brutal religion. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't just Jesus they killed. They killed any place where the Christians occurred and where there were Jews. The Jews were agitating against the Christians, preaching them. They were wanting them killed. Mm-hmm. It's a shameful chapter in Jewish history. We can't blame their descendants unless they're going around saying, like Jesus was deserving of being killed, and let's kill more people like that. Right now, the Jews they generally bless the societies they're in, and the societies curse them. One of the big problems is they don't have a place, or haven't until recently, until just before I was born, a place where they could repair to if people were persecuting. And, it wasn't just Catholics, Protestants, Lutherans, it's Germans, right? Persecuting them because Martin Luther made the mistake of appealing to the Jews. Hey, we're improving Catholicism. Come on down. They didn't. And he was anti-Semite. And so the Germans get their anti-Semitism. It used to be about 40-60 Catholic to Protestant. I think it's getting closer to 50-50, but Catholicism hates Judaism because of usury, not just because they're supposed to have killed Jesus and the sins of the fathers are built on
passed on to the sons.
Passed on to the children to this, what is it, 4th and 5th generations, it says in the Bible. Of course, Islam is the most persecuting of religions against Jews. Nazism, fascism, religion, kind of, sort of. But that was a passing kind of phase. Islam, big trouble is the founder appealed to the Jews. Originally, he wanted people to bow down, his Muslims to bow down to Jerusalem, not to Mecca. And then the Jews, he's going, I've improved on your religion, come on in. Oh, man.
Yeah,
and the Jews call them Meshuggah,
Very
or
good.
Meshuggahs, which means nuts.
Yeah.
And ever since. They've been treating Jews, well, not ever since. Every so occasionally they'll treat Jews nicely, well, relatively nicely. But they've done a lot of killing. And the founder of the religion, of course, was thoroughly Judeophobic. He ethnically cleansed 2 tribes, wiped out a third. Modern day terms, we call that genocide. It's probably thoroughly politically incorrect to say it. But I say the factually correct stuff. It was genocide then. Wiped out a whole tribe, but he's in the process of at least ethnically cleansing a 4th tribe, or ethnically cleansing, like going after a 4th tribe. And my suspicion is he seemed to get worse as he went along, and he probably would have genocided them too. In other words, killed all the adult males, turned the kids into slaves, and turned the women into sex slaves.
All right, so, Dark Wind, season 2. So this one's a Native American show, and there was mention on the screen of Alberta and British Columbia, so they must have had something to do with the production of this. But it's you can see it's set probably northern Arizona or something. It looks very nice.
Oh, you couldn't?
Yeah.
Why would they mention BC and
they must
what
have
was
made
the other
it,
one, Saskatchewan?
But or
Alberta?
funding? I don't know what, but there was you know, that's at the end of the show. It usually shows, yeah. Well,
what
anyway,
tribes are mentioned, do you recall?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It probably says on the back.
If it's Apache or Navajo, it'd be down there, but
I don't know.
But
anyway, I actually enjoyed watching this show. They're trying to solve a mystery of, you know, it's a police kind of drama thing. And there's beautiful scenery. Who's not going to like looking at that scenery?
Was it really dry then?
There was snow. I didn't know they got snow down there. But, yeah,
it's
there's
high elevations. There are higher elevations down in...
Oh, yeah, I do know about that. Yeah, there's even skiing and stuff. What's that one place called where it's, like, really cold? It's very high.
Aspen and Vail are in Colorado. Are those the ones you're thinking of? There's the Donner Valley. They got a huge amount of snow there.
Anyway, I do know that, though.
Yeah.
But, you know, you had to mention it to remind me. But it just seemed shocking to me to see snow on these beautiful, like, Monument Valley sort of thing.
Oh, that sort of stuff. So it's really dry landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's down. It's not. I figured it would be Montana if they're mentioning these.
Well, I don't know.
Provinces, but
anyway, that's
Montana,
what it looked like to me. Looked like northern Arizona, but I don't know because I've never actually been there. And I've always wanted to go, but we haven't made it down yet.
Yeah, it depends on which side of the mountains you're on. Downwind of the mountains there, on the mountains trend generally north-south. We'll have desert. Upwind, skiing, Wasatch Mountains up. That's how the Mormons survived. They'd have snow and then irrigation coming down from the mountains and stuff like that.
Anyway, the reason that this got bottom of the stack was, I found it creepy. There's the big lawman. He's acting outside the law, and he does some bad things. I mean, there's no innocent until proven guilty here with him, and they should have built a better. They had the tools to build a better mystery. I mean, they had blood on the money and stuff, and you could have had them testing the blood and go, yeah, he totally did it or whatever, but they didn't have any of that. And here, like, he's having people walk on sprained ankles for miles and miles and barefoot you know, it's cold, there's snow and stuff around, right? And he leaves this guy out to die.
Acting outside the law.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be cheering for him.
Yeah. So it's and at the end, I mean, the guy had gotten out on bail, but he still has to go to court. That doesn't mean he's gotten away with his crime. So, I mean, people are talking like, oh, he's not going to get charged or, you know, whatever. And it's like, no, he's just out on bail. You know, he still has to be proven guilty before he's put into jail. You know, that's how the system works.
Or it doesn't work, but yeah.
Who
You
doesn't?
can't go around saying,
But you can't
I
take the
don't think
law
it's
in
going to
your-
work, therefore let's take
Therefore,
the
I'm
law
just
in
going
our
to kill
own
someone. You know, that's murder.
hand. You even can't, if the system doesn't work, you can't do vigilante justice.
So anyway, did you have more you wanted to talk about?
Not really.
Okay.